All right, thank you. Hey, I think we're live.
Are we live?
Let's
Raise
double
your
check.
hand. Can you hear us? Raise your hand. Clap. Do the Zoom clap if you can hear us. Listening.
Get something in chat.
Zoom clap.
All right, well, so let's do this. Yeah, we're live. Okay, I think we're wrapping up the day. Probably wrapping up the day because Jason is still in California, which is where I'm from. I moved to the UK recently in Edinburgh. But if you're not familiar with Jason, I'll introduce you first. Jason Lempkin, founder of SaaStr, largest, I think, community of SaaS founders and executives on the planet. Often probably best known for SaaStr Annual. So I know this year you're expecting 15,000 people to join live in California. Obviously went virtual, and was it 30,000 people registered or attended? Or
it's all different. You get hundreds of thousands, but it's different, right? It's all different. But yes,
anyway,
we were going to have 15,000, and then we were the very first large event that had to postpone or cancel before COVID. Literally the first one in the Bay Area.
Right before.
All of 0 deaths and 2 cases in the Bay Area. And you're like, what?
Well, I mean, I was in Brazil. I was about to fly to the event, to SaaStr from Brazil, and everything changed. And now, also, so Jason's called the Godfather of SaaS by many. And if you didn't know him, he founded a company called EchoSign. It's founded more than one company, EchoSign, and grew to more than 100 million in revenue. It was acquired by Adobe. So that's for me. Now I'm going to be mostly interviewing Jason. So I wrote a book called Predictable Revenue, and then we together did a book called From Impossible to Inevitable. So a lot of this has always been focused on why do companies grow? Why do they struggle? And obviously interesting year. So I think one word for this year would be unpredictable. And I think yet a lot of people are hoping that things are going to go back to normal. They kind of are, but I think we have to expect a lot of unpredictability and surprises for the next couple of years. So for today, if we talk about the end of predictability, how do you build a resilient SaaS company or any company? Just want to throw it out there. So for this year, you've seen a lot of companies adapt. Your company as well adapted. What, in terms of looking back, what's been something you feel like has really helped your people or other people at companies be more agile and adapt to all these ridiculous and weird changes that have been happening this year?
Boy, I don't know. I wish I had some great answer. I've invested in about 25 companies and some good ones. So I get to watch these sort of other case studies, right? And in our community, the SaaStr community. And I don't know, but maybe this doesn't answer the question. But I think what a lot of us have done and what we need to keep doing as our companies have changed, right? Most of us probably have gone from in-office to distributed teams overnight, right? We were probably flirting with distributed. Maybe we had a remote office in the Nordics, but very few of us were truly distributed. And I think on the one hand, a lot of us will have folks on our team that are still struggling in this environment, which maybe we won't get to on this session. But I think the other thing we need to continue to do is spot our leaders, right? Spot the ones that thrive in this new world. If you'd ask most VPs of sales, Aaron, a couple of years ago, can sales work in a distributed fashion? What would 98 out of 100 say?
Yeah, I would say no.
Let the engineers work from home. Let the others go to the coffee shops, right? And I remember talking with the Trello folks a couple of years ago at SaaStr Annual, and they had their marketing and tiny sales team distributed. And they're like, this is crazy trying to do sales and marketing distributed, right? But we found a way, right? We found a way. Look at Zoom, look at Slack, look at every startup I work with. They've all found a way. So it's different. So sales folks you thought that needed to thrive in that pit, right? That learning, we've learned to share knowledge in Notion and in Gong and other things. And I'm kind of rambling, but I think the point is you look for those leaders, the folks that thrive in this environment, that sales, that top AE that's ready for management, that maybe thrives in this environment, that is a natural leader, that the folks are coming under. And I'm looking on my little team at companies I'm on the board of. I'm helping them watch, right? And I'm helping them watch the folks that are poking up through the clouds, right? That maybe wouldn't have before. And also helping them see the folks that probably aren't going to make the leap to this distributed world.
Yeah, I think too, what we've seen, because our company went virtual as well, and is that a lot of the people who could, a lot of the emotional struggle that people had was masked by FaceTime, by being in the office and seeing people in person. And when you kind of remove the seeing people in person all the time, and had to focus on other ways to gauge people's production and contribution, I know for us, people look different. Like some people who might not have been stars before got better, and other people who seemed to be very capable got worse in the struggle of remote.
Yep. It's definitely harder on the revenue side in particular. The bullshitting your way for 3 or 4 months doesn't work anymore. Right.
What? Well, what's I know one of the things that you've talked about a lot is how to take care of your people. So I know we'll get to the sales, but even for your salespeople, like what is something that you've seen or done in terms of helping take care of your people or salespeople? Because again, if they feel like they've got energy and capability and a structure and opportunity, they're going to work harder. And if they're feeling hopeless, it's going to be a struggle.
Yeah, boy, I wish I was an expert in managing people and people issues. I feel like I'm actually getting worse with it as time goes on, and you can see you learn more. And I'm like the simple things that you think matter in management, like caring and EQ, aren't enough, right? Not to get meta, but that's my learning from the last 6 months and year or two is caring about your team isn't enough, right? Many of us, especially as founders, we're very empathetic. Not all of us. Some of us are sociopaths. Some of us are like that NS9 cyber fraud company where the guy stole 17 million. But most of us, our EQ is not enough. Caring about your team. And I think maybe in an office, caring about your team sometimes is enough. Just seeing the CEO around, chatting over coffee, chatting at the desk. Like that could be a magical moment for an individual contributor, right? Getting to hang out with the boss, right? But it doesn't work in cyberspace. And maybe the one observation I've seen with the companies I've invested in and worked with, and even our own little team, for the sales team in particular, or other areas, like until you're huge, leverage this Zoom world to have everyone be a stakeholder. Everyone can join the product meeting instead of that talking. And even on my little team, some of our best ideas since March have come from our little sales team, right? New product ideas that maybe before they wouldn't have raised their hand and contributed, right? So if not everyone wants to collaborate, but most of us do, right? Especially in startups. So find a way to engage as many people as you can in your creative and collaborative activities. That's your better way, I think, to create bonding than just a Heineken happy hour. I think we're all tired of doing those. They were fun at first, but every week's a little much.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I realized there are a lot of people on teams because again, even on our team, we've got some who they work alone in their own area, and it can be very isolating. So opening things up to whoever wants to join, or at least kind of democratizing people's access to those meetings, can be a great way to help build some cultural and emotional strength among the team. So I'm going to switch gears a bit because something you'd said before really struck a nerve in a good way, which was, okay, products, you want to make sure your products are better. So what if you were going to take a CEO and give them advice towards, this is back to the idea of open up an incognito tab, try to onboard yourself to your own product. You go back. This is great. Probably my favorite tip for today.
It's a good tip.
Yeah.
What I said was what for folks that are watching, what Aaron said is I did this tweet a little while ago of what every CEO should do at least once a month, which is fire up your browser incognito just to remove any cookies or other experience, and literally go start on your marketing website. Type in whatever it is, predictablerevenue.com, SaaStr.com, talkdesk.com, algoa.com, and calmly and slowly be a new user. Figure out, what is the value proposition? Does this marketing site make sense? Go through, does it answer my questions? Then go to login, create a new account calmly from scratch. Don't use your 11,000 emails you have, and use it with a brand new email. Use something weird like Outlook.com or Hotmail you don't usually use. So start really from scratch, see the friction. And I used to do this all the time at Adobe Sun, at EchoSign. I literally just did it even on SaaStr.com, which looks like a blog the other day. And I can't tell you all the broken, problematic, frictionable things I had. And then I had another experience where a CEO I know launched a new product and I really wanted to support him, right? In fact, I would happy to be a paying customer. And I went in and the onboarding experience was just brutal, right? It was an F, and I showed him he had no idea, right? So people don't do this enough. You think your product team is doing it. You think they have their eye, but everyone in your company is just looking at a little piece, right? They don't know. They don't know the debt you have. They don't know how it all works. And if you and everyone on your team calmly does your journey, you will find that there are so many things you can improve without having to ship a new feature, right? Without having to radically change what you're doing, change your competitive posture, change your things. You can make your product somewhere between 10 and 20% better just by fixing the things that are suboptimal as a brand new user. And it's eye-opening. And you don't have to become a magician or spend months whiteboarding and figuring something out. Just do this every week or every month. And the only learning, and a bunch of folks lit this up on Twitter and LinkedIn too, is like, don't overwhelm your team with all your learnings, because you'll see like 20 things that suck. And if you're like most of us that are product focused, everything will drive you up the wall. Every little thing that's off, the pixel that's wrong, the broken link. But you can't send the team an email of 50 things that are broken on the site, or they'll just freak out and it'll be overwhelming. But do this every month if you can. And maybe once a week is too often, but boy, the things you'll see and the way you'll be able to improve, it's like magic.
Yeah, I think in some sense too is if you can practice having that beginner's mind and try to. We have this curse of knowledge. You're going to have the curse of knowledge of your own product. Yeah. Try to come at it, like you said, calmly, as if you didn't know. And it might, a lot of you, I would assume, would be disheartened by how challenging it would be to get on, or even by the service you get from your team, right?
Yep.
If it takes like, I mean, I don't remember exactly the study, but there's companies who do studies on how long it takes for inbound sales development reps or companies to respond to leads.
Too long.
And actually, how many companies don't even, and actually how many companies don't even respond?
Yeah.
Like, 30% of companies don't even respond to an inbound lead. And then a third of them, it might take 5 days.
Yep.
So there's a lot of places where you can look at.
And I guess I did put that tweet. Maybe the single most important thing you can do, is very important when you do that, is go through the support function and go through the sales function. There is a company, for example, I did that exercise of go through your app. There's a company that just crossed 15 million in revenue, growing like a weed, right? And I went to the site as a newbie. I mean, I've known this company since 8K a month in MRR, and I hit support and nothing. Like I didn't get an answer back. And this is a product you'd buy very quickly, right? And I asked the CEO, and the CEO is amazing. The CEO has 20 million dashboards and knows every day. I said, what's your SLA here? What's your average time to chat, to intercom? And he had no idea, right? And it turned out it was like 100 minutes. So I walk into the next board meeting and it's 60 seconds. It's 100 minutes to 60 seconds, right? That's a profound change from having that beginner's mind, right? But how often do you click on the support bubble at the bottom of your right-hand of your own website? Not often enough, right? Not often enough.
Yep.
You look at Aaron will return tomorrow. Oh my God. What do you mean Aaron will return tomorrow on the intercom? It's like, oh, who works at this company? But everyone else is doing their own thing. They're working on leads. They're working on this, or that no one knows that Aaron won't be even back till tomorrow. How would you feel as a customer? How would you feel if the SDR replied tomorrow? Right? An SDR should reply in seconds, right? Maybe not possible always, but the right answer is seconds.
Quickly,
because as a buyer, I'm on your website, right? And there's so many applications today. Like we all have to, I know we're getting off topic, but I know you're with me on this, Aaron. There's literally 1,000x more SaaS applications than when you and I started working together. Forget about the Salesforce and Adobe. There's 1,000x. So if there's so many apps, if I'm on your website and I click, I want to talk to a salesperson, you don't have time, because that is a high intent buyer today, right? 10 years ago, we didn't know if they were looky-loos or like they were just trying to learn what the internet was or SaaS was. No one has time today. Every buyer, I think, is a high intent buyer that I'm not telling you how to lead score, but I think so many more buyers are high intent buyers and you can't let them go, right? And that beginner's mind will let you keep eating away and improving that and measuring things so that you don't want to let any high intent buyer off your website ever.
Yeah, I'd say too, that's true. Like, so this kind of like a secret shopper approach towards your own product and onboarding and towards the way that your sales team, marketing team are handling buyers or people hitting your site is really important. Because I think no matter what happens as the world changes, and it's going to keep changing, there's going to be a lot of hopefully some good news, but you got to expect some nasty surprises over the next 12 to 18 months, because there's always, we just didn't expect this one this year to be this global. But whenever you can, one of the biggest challenges I see too is like companies who, it's that curse of knowledge. I don't remember who created that term, some book years ago. You know too much about your product, you know too much about your features, you know too much about yourself, and you forget what it's like to be someone who's new to your marketing message and your product. And so it's a lot harder, it takes a lot longer to pivot or change because you're not in tune with the actual users and true customers. So the closer you can stay mentally and emotionally to who your buyers are, the easier it is to pivot and change and adapt to what they need, because their needs could be changing too. Like your customers today may be the same, could be different than 9 months ago. Or even if you have the same customers, the problems they have might be different than 9 months ago. So you got to like stay in tune with your market as close as you can. So one thing we talked about, like the better you can have a team be kind of like a tight culture strength, emotional strength, can endure a lot of this change and this grinding uncertainty, the better. To staying in touch with customers as beginner's mind, especially by going to the secret shopper mode for your sales and marketing approaches to your onboarding. Yep. I'd say I'll throw a tip in. I feel like, again, I see that companies still don't specialize. I've been saying this for 10 years, specialize their salespeople enough. And I keep saying it for 10 years. I know I'm gonna have to say it for another 10 years because it doesn't happen. But when you have your salespeople doing everything, it's so hard for them to adapt. So again, like any sports team, there's no football team, and we're talking European football, not American football, that would tell all their players for everyone to attack and everyone defend. That would be insane. Right? You got attackers, midfield, defenders, and goalie. So if you have salespeople, don't have them become 360, doing all their own prospecting, closing, managing customers, and responding to inbound leads. There's probably a lot of these companies that don't respond to inbound leads might have their salespeople be in charge of that. So whenever you can specialize your people, they're going to be more focused, able to adapt and learn and do better no matter what happens.
Yep, you and I are both super passionate on specializing sales team. I probably learned it from you I just love Salesforce. Seemingly not related point, but going to your earlier question and the specialization, now that we're all distributed on sales, right, which is really a new world, right? Distributed for engineering, product.
Like you said, I would have been the first one to say remote sales doesn't work. It's just not going to work. But what the fuck do I know? Sorry.
The other thing most of us have learned this, but you and I were also talking about this before the call started. Like this, I have always strived for zero voluntary attrition teams, and especially sales teams. Not the fire the bottom 40%. If each rep is better than the last one, you truly can create a sales team that has zero voluntary attrition, where you have 90, 95, almost 100% sales team retention, right? Having said all that, and that we could certainly chat about that with limited time. Today, when everyone is measured, everyone is present, right, on Zoom, one of the best things you can do, which was harder in the real world in offices, is get rid of your underperformers, the ones that aren't doing it. It's so obvious. It's so obvious. When you're sitting around in the office in the team together, oh, Aaron will get there next quarter, right? Aaron's a good guy. Everyone it's zero. How much did you close, Aaron, this month? Nothing, but everyone likes Aaron, right? That sort of works on the Zoom. But what happens in the real world, because of, I think, the way our real world social connections are, we just give our massive underperformers too much time, and you never look back and we're happy they stayed 4 months longer, right? So I don't mean to be cruel, but the best thing you can do in September is, strive for a zero voluntary attrition team, keep all your winners, but let the losers just go, right? Maybe pay them a lot of severance. I don't care how you get it done, but you can't hide as much on the Zoom. You can't hide. You should be having more KPIs and more measurement, and everyone in the company should be looking at Notion and knowing, you have to distribute. Even our little team, we have so many dashboards and check-ins and daily scrums and daily everything that the ones that don't get anywhere, they shrink into the corners of the Zoom and the Notion, and then you almost can't see them anymore, the ones that aren't getting done, right? Just move them out this week or next week. Just move them out and watch what happens. Even on the sales team, move out that one bad sales rep and give her his leads to the others. What happens? Magic, right? Take their 50 leads a month and give them to Aaron and Jason. Even if Aaron and Jason are mid-pack, you're gonna make more revenue than the one that's closing nothing. So I don't mean to be heartless. I am heartful, as you are, but move out your underperform. Not the ones that you can help, but the ones that are zeros. Just move them out ruthlessly during just these distributed times.
Yeah, well, it's not. The thing is, it doesn't feel good to let anyone go. But what the team is, when you have an underperformer who stays on longer than they should, it affects everyone else. It's discouraging to the rest of the team. So if you really want to take care of your people, part of that is deciding who should stay and who should not. And honestly, this year, oh look, that's our doorbell actually, if you hear it. This year, honestly, I know there's a lot of companies that took advantage, not even took advantage, but because of the changes and going virtual, there was kind of their chance to change the teams around in ways they couldn't get themselves to do before. And so if you put these things off, like this is your chance to make those with this leadership changes, employee changes. I know in some places it's more challenging, but I think, like you said, Jason, because when you're all there together, that relationship bond is great in some ways, right? It makes good relationships better. but it also can hold you back from kind of having that clear sight to who's not doing what they need to do.
Yep.
So it's a good and bad. I've been remote for like 10 years, so it's not as much of a change. In fact, we had a bit of it was like a bit of a vacation during the summer because we didn't have, not the summer, with lockdown, because we didn't have to hustle the kids back and forth to school every day. But I've seen it with the rest of the team, how like the pros and the cons of going virtual. Like some people struggle because they're alone, and other people are feeling like they're great because they have more time and flexibility.
For sure.
All right, let's talk one more thing. Sorry, now when you said before, going back to being better with customers, right? Being better with customers, how to be better with onboarding, how to get them on and just be more customer focused. If you have a SaaS company, your activation rates are too low, like that's something you should be laser focused on right away to get those up. Like this is kind of like a tying up a little bit more on that beginner's mind. How do you really, or like customer's mind? How do you get to think like a customer? Can you tell us more about your concern over activation rates and some of the benchmarks people should look at?
Well, it's just a detail, but it's one of these things, you know, sometimes I'm late to focus on metrics. If you've been reading SaaStr for a while, I hadn't really thought through the variability in activation rates across SaaS companies, right? Until I was working with a SaaS company that is a market leader that had just crossed 10 million in revenue. And NPS was high, right? Customers love this product, you know, 1,000 5-star reviews, but churn was abnormally high. Churn was abnormal. Now it was SMB focused. So, you know, you do it with small businesses, you do expect some credit card churn, but it was really a mystery. Why would churn? It wasn't off the charts churn, but it was abnormally high. And
do you remember how much that was?
Well, here's the thing. They brought on a new head of customer success and they had never known. They had no idea what the number was. And she came in kind of dejected and she's like, it's 70%. So,
ouch.
So yes, our customers love us, but key to that is this particular application, it's easy to use, but it requires business process change, right? And all apps require business process change, but I think we underestimate as founders that tax, that hurdle, right? And in the old days, even if you spent $300 a month on an app, you could almost be sure 10 years ago, your customer would deploy because it was so much money, right? Today, the average small business has over 100 SaaS apps and the average enterprise has over 1,000. So some aren't going to get deployed, okay? It's already budgeted, and money alone, buying a product alone does not ensure deployment. It does not ensure the resources internally will be deployed for business process change. So this company went from 70 to over 90 in 1 quarter.
Activation rates?
Yeah, activation rates, 70 to 90 in 1 quarter. You can do that. So measure yours. Why can't, if someone's going to go to all the trouble again to go to your website, to talk to a sales rep, to do a free trial, that's a lot of effing work, isn't it? It's a lot of work. And I find almost no salespeople in particular take that hurdle seriously. They underestimate how much mental energy and time a customer commits to an application. We're all busy, Aaron. And when you get more enterprise, we forget in the enterprise, a department head might deploy only 1 or 2 new apps a year. Okay.
Yeah, it's a huge project to do anything.
Huge projects, even for an SME, even for a mid-sized business, like changing your ERP, changing the way you sign contracts, changing the way you do accounting or billing. Like that's a big effing project when your business is you're already overloaded. And especially sales does not take that burden seriously. Maybe a lot of founders don't. So if someone's gone to all that trouble and they've paid you, you want your activation rate to be 100. Why can't it be 100? Why? Oh, I don't have enough folks on customer success. This particular company we're talked about that went from 70 to 90, this is not a huge company. They added 10 folks in CS almost overnight, 10. And the sales guy asked me, why are there more folks in CS than sales? Is that normal? And I said, no, it's not normal, but it's magical. It's not normal, but it's magical. Because that 70% is just latent churn, isn't it? So let's imagine this company is at 10 million ARR and 30% is going to churn out because they don't deploy. That's 3 million.
Like you said,
cost,
yeah, like
right?
a 70%
hire the 10
activation
CSMs,
rate.
Hire the 10 CSMs to recapture that 3 million in year 1. And maybe it's even 20 million over 5 years. Is that worth 10 CSMs? Of course it is, right? That's your cheapest investment. So I'm going to write this SaaStr post of maybe you should have more CSMs and AEs, right? No one does, but we probably should, right? And activation rates is really the reason, right? Not just the loosey-goosey numbers, but why can't activation rates be 100, right?
Well, like I said, the flip is saying that if you have a 70% activation, that 30% are not activating.
Yeah.
Right.
They're going to leave. They're not going to wake up in 2 months and say, I'm going to do this work on my own.
Well, and I think so, especially in Europe, like one of the things that sales is still a bit of a dirty word, you know, even in the States in some places, a little more in Europe. It's one of my learnings, not a shocker here in EMEA. But I think one of the things that we have been trying to get people to believe in, and this is, I believe is in the Impossible book as well, is that sales is a life skill, and customers, it's easy to forget like how hard it is for customers to buy things, especially if it's, again, even a mid-sized company, especially a big company, like to research something, actually not just buy something, but implement something is a project. And so part of the job of a salesperson is actually to help a customer buy the right thing. And part of that is knowing how are they going to get it, not just the purchase, that's just one step, but to some sort of business result they're trying to achieve.
Yep.
So I'm just I think we're good here. We don't have any questions yet. By the way, if anyone who's watching this, if you have any questions, throw it into your platform there, and we'll see if we have a chance to answer them at the end. All right. Quick question. So just because we got a few minutes, Jason, on between the pandemic, like just for you, between home life, work life, like what's been working? Are you working at home, or what's your working situation these days, just personally? Are you wait, first? Wait, I had a question. Are you still running every day, or did you this year?
Yeah, I mean, boy, I mean, I do run 5 miles a day, 360 days a week. A year. I give myself 5 days off for travel or other things. Yeah, I don't know if I could chat about diet and physique and other things. You know, I do think that routine helps. You know, we could chat about that. I think maybe the more meta question, I think, is just that what we've done, and we're pretty far into the pandemic, so I think we've all found our own cadences, but you know, our big changes are daily stand-ups every day, right? 1:30. Never did this. I did this early in my career. You know what I hated most of all of startup life was the daily stand-up. I just hated that every day, guy sitting around standing. And I was so reluctant to do it when we went into global pandemic, but we do it every day at 1:30, the entire team, and it's magical, right? And most people.
How long is it? 15 minutes?
It's exactly 30 minutes. And then everyone does a morning stand-up check-in on Slack. So first thing in the morning, we tried the morning style, engineering style one, where everyone says what they're going to do in the day. That overloaded the team. It was a lot of stress for folks to prepare for that morning and Scrum style stand-up. So that overloaded the team. So instead, everyone just goes into Slack and they give their 3 bullets of what they're working on today. So everybody knows what everyone else is doing. And then the 1:30 meeting is just a check-in every single day. And then we have our long team meeting on Monday, as we always have. But you know, that's 10 touch points we have as a team versus barely 1 before the pandemic. And it's magical. And it's also surfaced folks, you know, and they've moved on from our team that didn't really do any work, right? That had no bullets to put into their Slack and had nothing to contribute at the stand-up. So it does elevate the game. And like, there was this thing that I think his name, you know, how do you pronounce his name? Frank Slootman from Snowflake, right? There's this thing that kind of went all over social media, his LinkedIn post just before he joined Snowflake about how to push the team to give more, right? And he's like, ServiceNow was not the most amazing product, and Data Domain were not, they're good products. But what I did was push the team to do more than they ever thought they could. He's right. That was the magic of me as a CEO. And now Snowflake's the most successful cloud IPO of all time. And if you can use these tools to improve the productivity of the team, the output, push them to be better, magic can happen, right? And he made this magical point in the LinkedIn post, which is, why does a new CEO come in and all of a sudden a company in the same competitive position with the same software does much better? How could that be, right? How does that make any sense? And he made the point, like, how does a coaching change in the NBA change the performance of a team when it's often almost the same players as last season? You see this magic. It's not always LeBron joining the different team. Sometimes you turn around and not the same 15, but most of them perform better. And he's like, the leadership, the CEO, the coach finds a way to get twice as much out of the team without breaking them, right? And I don't have all the magic ideas, but I think we've all thought about that and use these daily touch points and things to focus folks more, to get people to collaborate more so that everyone can do 50% more without working 50% more hours. You know, that's the magic if you can do it.
Yeah, and plus it's amazing. Even I see it how much time gets spent on just stuff that never really moves the needle, just like busy work. So I think we got a minute here. You want to wrap up? Best place to find you, SaaStr. Like, look, you can move your head for a second. People can see the spelling. Yeah. SaaStr.com, I assume.
If you really want to find me, the best place is probably on Twitter at Jason LK, or go to SaaStr.university, where we have 8,000 founders and 4 free courses in SaaS. It's nothing. It's free. Those are where I tend to hang out, but I'm on Twitter a little too often during this global pandemic. So at Jason LK is it's where to find me, or on Quora, where many of us met in the old days. But thank you, TechBBQ. Thank you, Aaron, for all this. This was great. This was a lot of fun. And yeah, great event. Great 2 big days, right?
Yeah, I'm bummed. Actually, I spoke at the live TechBBQ last year, and I gotta say, really enjoyed the kind of camp layout that you had. So looking forward to when it comes back. Hopefully next year. We'll see. No one knows what's going to happen next year. I think it's going to be another level of unpredictability. 2022, we don't know. Yep. The word of the year, unpredictable.
All right, everybody. Thanks for the time. Thanks for joining us.